Today we have the pleasure of interviewing Judge Lauren Lake. Thank you for joining us.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, yes, yes. You are definitely, I look to you personally as a mentor in this field, someone that is an attorney, but also in media. So, just from the bottom of my heart, thank you for doing all that you've already done because I feel like it continues to open up the doors for people like me. So, I just wanted to say that
It's
definitely.
my pleasure and my honor. I love to see young lawyers in this game just trying to figure it out, make their way, leave their mark. It's important. So I'm happy to do it.
Great, great. So I make all my guests play a round of hot topics.
Okay.
So we have two hot topics for you today. We know you are the paternity court judge amongst a lot of things. So you are always in between probably disputes between parents. And so our first topic is Kanye West and Kim Kardashian, as most know, have been divorced for quite a while. He has remarried, and one of the things that you notice about his new wife typically is she has no clothes on. Wherever she goes, it's like a leotard. Sometimes she has no shoes on. I don't know what, I don't know what type of marketing they're doing, but it's like a thing. It's not like, oh, one instance. It's like anytime she's out with him, she's barely dressed. And so she's an adult, and if that's what they want to do in their relationship, that's fine. Why this is a hot topic today is because Kim Kardashian has stated that she is uncomfortable with how she dresses, at least around her children. And so we just wanted to get your take. Obviously, when you get a divorce, there is some sort of order put in place about visitation and activities and payment and all of that. um, is there anything Kim can really do at this point in terms of going back to court and expressing her concerns, and a judge actually trying to put something in place to enforce that?
Yeah, we all know, right? You can try a ham sandwich. You can litigate a ham sandwich, right? Like you can come up with a suit for anything. But in this instance, I think the stakes are even higher in the sense that as a mother, right, you are always concerned about the environment your children are in, which is why usually in child custody agreements, there are understandings, agreements in writing, right, where maybe we're not going to introduce our children to anybody until the other parent has met that person, or we're not going to have people sleeping over at the house while our children are there under your care. There are lots of things that people work out. Now, I think it's fascinating that I don't think we have gotten to the point yet where we want to also talk about, and whomever you're with, whomever your new wife is or your new partner is, let me also specify what they can have on, right? I know that seems a little far fetched. And yet, when there are minor children, and you do see a woman who is consistently scantily clad, right? Like very, definitely there's a style approach there that I don't think the reasonable parent would want their child to witness. I think that there is something to be said about getting that understanding with the other partner. I'm a big proponent of having conversations in the living room instead of having to have them in the courtroom. I think the courtroom takes them up a notch. I don't think it really lends itself to people really being their best co-parent. And I think it takes the entire co-parenting situation to a new adversarial level that we try not to go, right? So I would have loved to seen Kim and Kanye be able to just have this conversation by phone or sit down together, have a coffee and say, listen, because let's keep it real. There were outfits that Kim probably wore when they were married that maybe someone else would feel is not appropriate for children to see, right? It's also very subjective. But if you have a problem with it as a parent, I would like to have them sit down and say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what it feels like to me. If the children have expressed, any type of concerns or issues or dislikes, that's an important time to bring it up. But if necessary, yes, you can petition the court because the court standard is the best interest of the child, right? And so when you think about even celebrity children who would live on this level, right? Who have parents who are celebrities, who were born into this, who didn't ask for this, who didn't work for this, they're just born into it. when you have situations like that that call even more attention, right? This goes beyond the celebrity parent. Now, if their partner is also, damn near naked, that's another level of attention, right? That I think could be potentially damaging for a child, or for a child to maybe not understand these fashion choices. So, all in all, I think it's something that I would prefer parents to resolve amongst themselves. But if necessary, and it does, in fact, put the best interest of the child in jeopardy, yeah, you can petition the court. Absolutely.
Well, Kim, if you're listening, you heard it straight from Judge
I'm
Lord.
sure her lawyers have told her that.
I know you don't probably want to get the lawyers involved because, as you mentioned, I do think informally dealing with it outside the courts and without a judge is probably the best way to deal with it. But
Yes.
if you are saying that, hey, I've tried to talk to him, I've even tried to talk to her, and I'm still not getting anything. Unfortunately, sometimes filing something wakes people up, and they respond a
Yes.
little bit better when they see a filing. So you could even do, I don't want to say a bluff filing, but maybe if you even file something that may force the conversation.
That's always an opportunity. But when you make a living being with someone, the constant bluffing and filing and this thing and that, at the end of the day, that only affects the child, because that keeps you at odds, which is why I recommended really trying to resolve this behind closed doors, between one another, or even just between the lawyers, right? Where it doesn't become a court case that everyone's talking about. The children are getting old enough for this to be talked about in school. So
Mhm.
that's kind of why it's my opinion. It's interesting. I've been a lawyer a long time. I've been a lawyer longer than I've been a parent. And I think my approach in family law has shifted even more, right? Away from what we need to litigate, what we need to petition the court for, to just really trying to get parents to understand that what's really in the best interest of the child is you all to figure out how to work these things out. That really is what it is, because you're going to have to do that. You're always going to be that child's parent.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, something that is not quite in the court system yet, and again, hopefully will not hit the court systems. Our Little Mermaid, Hailey Bailey, has broken up with DDG, who I had to actually even Google to see what he does. He is a YouTube creator. I believe he's also a rapper. So he's a creative just like her. But obviously, Hallie is the more known person of the two of them. And so they've broken up. Obviously, she hasn't said a word about it, right? She's a bit, you can tell she's a very private person. We didn't even know she was having a child until after the child was born. So I love that about her. But unfortunately, he is very vocal. He is very vocal about them taking a break or breaking up. And he's getting upset with people making comments, but it's almost like, well, we wouldn't have known if you had said anything, because she hasn't said anything. So my question to you is, some of the comments were saying, well, we hope she doesn't have to pay him child support. And there's some people responding, oh, they were never married. They don't have to worry about that. Or, oh, he makes more money than her. What is your take about, again, women that may make more than their partners, and they are obviously celebrities, and kind of the pickle they put themselves in, having children with people that are maybe not as famous, not as wealthy, and being put in this position where they may have to pay child support to the other party.
Well, that's where we are now. And I think that's what I would say, is that I think back in the day, I think it was a rare occasion when women would have to pay child support to men. The times have changed, and women need to understand that. There are a number of women who now pay child support, are responsible for it, because at the end of the day, it's a calculation based upon the child care or the child custody agreement, and a calculation done to determine which parent is in better position to pay, how often the child will be with the other parent. If they're sharing legal and physical custody, then that parent may or may not need some type of assistance to make sure the child's needs are met. And courts are awarding it just like they would award child support from a man to a woman. And so I think we have to begin to think about that. And, who you have a child with is one of the most important decisions you make in your life. Now, whether you want to base that on, if everything goes wrong and we break up, is this a person I have to pay child support to? Well, that's on you, right? That's something you got to think about. But the truth is, it's a reality if, in fact, that time comes where there ends up being child custody. And you're correct. You don't have to be married to pay child support. It doesn't have to necessarily be a divorce. In an instance like this, where two people who've never been married have a child, the child still deserves to be supported. I don't know what either of them make. I actually am not that familiar with the young man's YouTube career, although we know now YouTube and influencing and all of these things online
Now,
can be
allegedly, he's worth $8 million.
can be
Allegedly,
extremely lucrative, right? Right? And then listen, on the flip side, let's also keep it real and say, and this is knowing nothing about Hallie, and she is an extremely talented young woman, has been working in this industry for years, and I'm sure has done very well for himself. But I think people also confuse that just because they see someone on television and they see someone in the movies, that all of a sudden they're worth $100 million. That's not the case as well, right? There is a such thing as that really truly being your life's work. And it doesn't mean that it makes you extremely wealthy, right? I often counsel people, a lot of people who want to be on TV, and they come to me and I say, listen, the majority of the money is made behind the camera, not on the camera. And I'm a person that has, been on the camera for years. So I'd like to say that as well before we go and make it seem like, Hallie has got, $500 million to be paying. That's something that the court will take her income versus her income, and they will decide who owes who child support, or that maybe it's an even split and they both take care of the child or share expenses equally. And there's nothing wrong with that, too.
right? And I hope that's obviously the case without, like you said, knowing exactly how much she has or how much he has. I'm hoping that they can just even just informally come to their own agreement, which again, courts actually prefer. They actually prefer you come to your own agreement
Absolutely.
before filing something. You really only are filing with them when someone is just not cooperating, not
If
paying
exactly, do it on your own.
on
Figure
your
it
own.
out. Don't, and then that way, when you need to make an adjustment, you can do that. You put into practice the communication required to work through separate things. Now, the other thing I want to say too, because I hear a lot of people online when things like this happen and men are awarded child support, and people like, oh my God, I need people to understand too, and women to understand too. Honey, these days where these men don't take the money, that's gone. A lot of men are taking the child support,
They're
they
taking
take
the
the
alimony.
alimony, they taking whatever it is, okay? They taking the dishes, okay? Gone are the day when we can expect to say, oh, well, the man's not gonna ask any money from the woman. No, no, that's over.
Yeah,
And
I
so know what you're getting into when you get into it. And I don't know nobody's business.
I agree. It makes me think of a good sister-in-law, Rachel Lindsay, who is a lawyer, but stopped being a lawyer again to go on TV. And I think because people just saw on TV and having all these influencer campaigns, even her husband, Brian, just assumed she had all this money. And she had to tell the judge he wants like $18,000 a month in alimony. We don't have any kids, but
Yeah,
he just wants this alimony to keep his lifestyle. He knows that I cannot pay him $18,000. Where does he think this money is coming from? And so ultimately, in that particular situation, I don't think she had to pay 18, but I think she had to pay something close to like 11 or 12. But it was
yeah,
still more than what she originally wanted.
absolutely.
And so it's not just child support, it's also alimony. So
Yes.
these fierce women that are out here, even if you're not famous, you're just a fierce woman and a huge career making a lot of money. Just again, keep all this in mind when you're getting married or
Yeah,
having.
know what you're doing. Know what you're doing and know the possibilities of what happens. And look, as lawyers, I've often been accused of being the parade rainer. We tend to look at worst case scenario. That's what we're trained to do. That's what we must do because that's how we advise. How we have to look at what the worst thing that can happen is, and then we kind of almost have to dial back from that to advise how to go forward. But I say in this respect, it's very important for women to say, when you're in a relationship, when you're having a child with someone, what is the worst case scenario? And then from there, I need to protect myself accordingly, whether it's through a prenup or whether it's making sure that person remains gainfully employed and earning. because at the time of that divorce, if that person is not earning, some courts do take into account the ability to earn. However, there are a lot of instances where it's just based upon what is being earned right now. And so if you get caught up in something like that, you can expect to be paying, to be cutting a check, honey. And that's a hard check to cut. I thank you, Lord, I don't have to cut that one.
Yes,
Okay.
a hard check to cut. So we wish all these parties well in their various custody and alimony situations. I think there were just a lot of jewels about women, especially professional, high earning, high achieving women. I think you left a lot of nuggets in our round of hot topics that I hope our listeners are taking note on. Thank you for playing hot topics with us. I had no doubt that you would do really well with hot topics. But this interview is actually about you. Some people know just about paternity court or maybe just one or two other things about you, but they don't really know your journey. So my first question for you is, who was Lauren Lake before the TV court judge, even before the lawyer? Who were you kind of maybe going into college? Who were you?
I was a young woman growing up in Detroit with a passion for singing and performing. Going into college, I was actually going to go and study to be an anesthesiologist. That was my thing. I was pre-med and I love to sing. I love to perform. I love to be in musical theater. And I quickly realized in my college journey that I am a person that really does not know how to leave their work at work. As I began to do different shadowing experiences through the hospital, I realized that I didn't think that I would be the doctor I thought I would because I was so emotional about people not feeling well. And I began to think about, did I want to do that every day? Could I be my best self doing that every day? Could I look at that objectively? That then led me to go to law school. My parents were just like, okay, you don't want to go to medical school. What do you want to do? And to be very honest with you, when I first decided to go to law school, it wasn't because I ever had a passion for the law going into college. It was really because I had so much experience on stage. I've always been an extremely verbal child, vocal. Both of my parents are professors, were professors. They passed on now. And so I thought like, well, I really don't necessarily have a passion for the law, but it seems like my skills just kind of add up to me being pretty good at this. Like I enjoy advocating for people. I enjoy telling a story. And so I said, I'll try law school. And I said, and if I don't like it, I just won't do it. But I ended up liking it. I ended up loving trial advocacy. That was one of my favorite things was being able to try a case and moot court and all of those things. And that's where the law kind of got me, where I could be a voice for the voiceless, where I could tell a story for someone better than they could tell it for themselves and that could give them a chance, a second chance, which is why I went first into criminal defense work. And that's where it all began with criminal defense work to entertainment law to family law.
What law school did you go to, and what was your favorite class there?
Wayne State University in Detroit. And I loved it because it was the first time, and I was responsible for my own law school education. That was another thing my parents did. Up until college was their responsibility. Any type of postgraduate degrees was my responsibility. And it was a really special time in my life because I was like opening a clothing store. I was trying out various aspects of entrepreneurship. I was singing in bands, and I was also paying for my law school education at Wayne State University in Detroit. And so it was a real growing time. And I would say my favorite class would be trial advocacy, right? When you had to learn how to speak and to address the jury and to try a case. And um, it really helped me realize that that's what I was good at, where most people were freaking out on that day, right? You know, even the best of law students that day were just crumbling, like, oh God, I gotta get up and really had let's be honest, the courtroom becomes a stage. And while you're not doing a piece of fiction or something like that, you are very much telling a story.
I don't know what happened. You froze and then it popped back in. So
Yeah,
you
you froze on me too. I was just talking, but I
and
don't know.
it just popped and it picks right back up with recording. It's fine. This is going to be edited.
Perfect.
But
No
I think
worries.
the last thing I heard you say was people were freaking out about the trial
Yes.
advocacy class, but that's actually where you shined.
That's what I looked forward to. I was just like, let's go, people. And when I stepped in there and began to try my case,
Mhm.
uh I knew that I had found one of my purposes in life, right? And which led me to criminal defense work right out of law school. And I have always enjoyed being a voice for the voiceless and telling a story in a way that people will understand and helping people get a second chance based upon the merits of the case.
What was your best moment in law school that you can recall? I mean, you may have plenty, but is there one moment where you're like, ah, is it graduation? Is it maybe passing the bar? Like, is there anything where you're like, oh, this is great?
I'm, well, I guess I can just really just tell you the truth. My best moments in law school were this study method that we came up with. My girlfriends, I won't call them out.
Okay.
But we had our way. One thing we did in law school, and I think this is one of the ways in which I was able to get through it, is because law school wasn't the only thing I did. And I did see a lot of people who were just so stressed out through law school. It is not easy.
Right.
But because I was singing and balancing what I love to do against what, I was pursuing in terms of law, it gave me the opportunity to kind of see things differently. And one of the things I love that we did, we had this study technique where, okay, I'm telling my age, but we used to have these cassettes, right?
Okay.
And so they used to be tapes, honey, like which now would probably be something else. But we'd get like civil procedure, we'd get like constitutional law, and you'd get the tape. Well, we would take them out by the pool at my apartment. We would literally play the tape, like we would have a full day out playing the tape, and it was our version of studying, and we would be conversing through it, playing it. But what we thought was so powerful about that was we were able to really like put this knowledge into our brain in a way that it wasn't just stored in a short-term memory. Like we were really talking through it. And I love those special study groups that we formed, because to most people it was outside the box. What are you guys doing? You guys are laying by the pool listening to Constitution. What are you talking about? It's like
I'll be honest, this is the first I've heard of anyone
you won't hear it. You won't hear it. But I'm telling you all, it really made a difference. And it made it not so much of a drag, right? The way that we approach. And it's funny to me because it translates so much into who I am now. I am not the lawyer. And look, there are so many lawyers now, but I'm not the lawyer when I'm on television that speaks about the law in some overly legal ego way. I am the lawyer that is passionate about breaking the law down for people, for just breaking it down so that you understand how you can be empowered by it and not fear it. And I really think it came from those days of just not overhyping it. I remember we had this one time, and it was so funny, our constitutional law professor, and he was like, we wanted to do a study group on Thursday. And we were like, Thursday, that's a different world. I mean, we and my girlfriends, we were so funny, but it was like we just were determined to have life and the law. And we did that.
of it.
And we still to this day fight to have both of those, which I think is very important for young lawyers. Have life, and you can throw on some love too, and have the law. So
Law.
we had some very avant-garde studying techniques that I think really paid off in the end. We're all successful lawyers, so it worked.
So apparently it worked. I will say this. I take this back. I didn't obviously listen. I didn't think to listen to the topics while in school, but what I did do when I was studying for the bar, I would listen to the recordings, the audio recordings, because
Yes.
it does implant in your brain different ways. So Maybe
It
not
is.
every night, but I would go to sleep like listening to certain topics because after a while it does get embedded in your subconscious and it's a different way to study. So hopefully if
It
you're in law
is.
school, you're
And using what
taking this.
works for you, not being afraid to use what works for me. I'm not a sit still person. Once I sit through the classes, I'm not going to go sit all night in the library. I know me. But will I sit by a pool and have a little cool drink and sit and press that pause and be like, now, wait a minute now, and literally talk about who understood that? Did you get that? Did you catch that? Okay, this is what I'm thinking about this. Like it just made it more fun. We'd have the most robust study groups full of laughter. And I think we just refuse to let it overstress us.
Hmm.
And that came in handy for the bar as well.
Yes,
Just
absolutely.
learn it and apply it to your everyday life, to real life. So that I think that is the best part about law school that I remember. The other thing I will say quickly is working in the free legal aid clinic. Wayne State University had a free legal aid clinic that very much started my passion for family law and has continued through to this day. And I absolutely loved working in the free legal aid clinic and helping people who um, just could not afford, right? The legal process is expensive. It's
Very.
emotionally and financially draining. And so I love to give insights and encouragement to people who could not afford to go give a $2,500 retainer at the drop of a dime. And so
Absolutely,
that was another
absolutely.
part that I loved.
Well, most and I always say people are tired of me saying it, but one of the statistics we talk about on this podcast is less than 5% of lawyers are black and less than 2.5% are black women. So we're obviously unicorns of the profession. Um, did you ever experience either in school or at work where you felt like, even if it wasn't outward discrimination, that maybe you would be treated a little differently if you were white and male?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I felt that way. And when I was a young court appointed attorney, I did a lot of court appointments when I first started to just kind of get my feet wet, really start getting in there. And, I could recognize that in even the faces of people whose case I was appointed to would sometimes be like,
Hmm.
you know, okay, I'm getting a lawyer, but I really wanted, I really think a white male lawyer, right,
Mhm.
would represent me better, right? And I've always been very outside of the box, right? I was, practicing law and doing me, and I had an interesting story and a different approach to that. But what I think happened more often, I don't, and no one has ever asked, me for me to be removed from a case or for them to change attorneys. So I think I did pretty well considering. But I think that I did have to kind of let them know that, no, no, no. Let me tell you what my gifts are, and let me tell you what my strengths are. And after a meeting with me, I think it was pretty much clear that they were in the best hands, because
Mhm.
one thing about me is, look, that very thing that made me feel like I couldn't be a doctor and I would take my work home, I think was the very thing that I realized as I got older, which made me a great lawyer. And it also makes me good at what I do. I really care for real,
Mhm.
right? I'm not just doing a job. I really care for real. And that's what a lot of people have said to me with paternity court and court TV, court TV and We the People, my court shows, that you look like you really care. I do. And that's the difference, right?
Mhm.
That's the difference. And so I think I was able to give that to my clients in a way that they realize, and not to say that a white attorney wouldn't understand or a black, I'm not saying that at all, but I do think it was one of my superpowers. And I did overcome that. And I think racism exists everywhere.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's at every turn. It's systemic, right?
Mhm.
I think more so than the racism that would have affected me is the racism that I witnessed as a criminal defense attorney that really struck me the most, which was how many young Black and Brown people were behind bars and on first offenses, and their white counterparts were in the gallery with private attorneys, and how them having a private attorney really affected the outcome more than what our Black and brown young people were doing. So that was the racism that I was at war with, because I wanted to give them that level of care, concern, advocacy that made sure they got the same shot as maybe someone who could afford a private attorney.
Absolutely. Well, that's a good segue to you becoming a TV court judge. I know, as you mentioned, you did criminal law, family law, you did all, little entertainment law. So was it the entertainment law that kind of gave you the bug of saying, maybe I want to be a lawyer in a different way? Because I mean, you were singing. I don't think a lot of people knew you're a singer. So
Yeah,
what made
no.
you say, hey, let me be a TV judge? How did that
I never said that. So that's the funny part of this story. I was always a lawyer and a singer.
okay.
And then by chance, years ago, I did a show called To Live and Date in New York, which was really a first reality show back in 2000, but it was for the UK. And they really wanted to follow women who were like real life Sex in the City style women. This is when Sex in the City was all the rage. They wanted to see women in New York who were working and dating. Well, I actually had nothing, another lawyer friend of mine, I had no idea about this show. A lawyer friend of mine, Caitlin Johnson, sent me the email and said, this would be a great show for you to showcase your music and you being an attorney. It really was nothing about TV. And then my brother was in town and he was like, I dare you to just go. I dare you. A long story short, I go out of thousands of women. They end up picking me and not doing my first show on television. That
Wow.
show led to Ricky Lake seeing me. Ricky Lake wanted me to be on her show. I was on her show for
Mhm.
2 seasons. I got my first development deal from there. And I've worked in television consistently from that time. And never once during that time did I really say, oh, I want to be a television judge. I just started working on Court TV, CNN, MSNBC. People would see me, they'd call me, they'd have me on. From there, I'd get another opportunity. It was to the point where I knew it was a part of my purpose because I really was not engineering this. It
Yeah.
was just happening. And then at some point, the creator of Paternity Court, David Armour, he reached out to me and he's just like, I've been following your career. I've been watching you for years talk about the law. And which is interesting because he said exactly what I'm so passionate about. He goes, I love the way you break the law down and you make it interesting. You do not over lawyer it. You bring a humanity to the law that many lawyers cannot. And I want you to be the judge of a new court show I'm doing. I heard about it. I said, well, I mean, if you believe in me, I never thought about being there. I'm like, but
Yeah.
sure, I'll, I'll try it. We'll see. And he goes, well, I want you to meet, everyone over at MGM. And then if they say yes, then it's a go. And the rest is history. I met
Yeah.
everyone over at MGM. And the next thing you know, Paternity Court was on and it was, a huge hit. So it's something I didn't plan. And I'm a big believer in that as well, riding the wave of life and showing up
Mhm.
um, as your true, authentic self,
Mhm.
giving of the gifts that you have in a way only you can. I've shared that with a lot of my mentees and a lot of young lawyers who, uh, look, we've all had something we've seen. Like when we were younger, I think it was called LA Law.
Mhm.
It was like Blair Underwood, and
Mhm.
everybody was on LA Law, and you
Yep.
wanted to, and that's not what it was. Like when you go to practice law, it ain't that.
Right.
Okay, you got to do the work. But I think at the end of the day, that's what happens when you really show up in your gift is it makes room for you, right? Their gift will make room for you. So I often tell young people who are fighting, okay, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. Okay, that's beautiful.
Mhm.
What are you actually doing in the moment that besides just banging on a door, what are
Right.
you actually doing in the moment that allows you to show up in your gift? Because oftentimes that gift is what will make room for you. I never planned any of this. I was a professional background singer, working and traveling and loving my life. And now I'm able to use my voice in a different way. And I love that as well. And so, limitless possibilities. That's why I always talk about limitless possibilities because it really is the case. And just because one dream doesn't work,
Mhm.
right, doesn't mean another one can't be born
Mhm.
based upon the actual process of pursuing that other dream. So I was pursuing music
Right.
and working and traveling. And the next thing you know, television falls in my lap to the point where at first I really was kind of like, well, I mean, They want me to be on TV. I mean, I guess I can. I was so focused on my music career and what next tour am I getting on, or what album am I going to be on, or recording my own music, that when television first happened, I really didn't. I wasn't all
Right.
excited. It was
Right.
just like, okay, it's an opportunity. Sure, I'll do it.
Hmm.
And then once it began, who knew it would be my life's work that I love? And I'm so grateful that I thought outside the box and tried something that I never thought that, about trying.
Well, I love what you say about the gifts making. You said, what is it again? The gift
Your
making
gifts will make room for you. Yes.
your gifts will make room for you. I think
Yes.
that's a very beautiful saying. It's a good way to think about just
That's from the Bible. I ain't make that up.
she's like, I'm not gonna take credit for the quote. Well, if you got it from the Bible, I think it's just it's a beautiful. I've actually never heard that saying, so I got to go back and read my Bible. I didn't know that was in
Look,
there.
now I want to pull it up. Where my phone? I want to pull it up. I'm listening
In
now.
there, I didn't know it was
I'm gonna
in
give
there.
you the scripture.
I'm sitting over here saying, "Oh wow, that's a great quote from the Lord." You're good. You're a good person though. You said, "No, no, no. I'm not gonna take credit if I didn't.
Mm-mm.
I'm not gonna
I
take
don't
credit."
have to. Proverbs 18:16. A man's gift makes room for him.
Wow.
Yes,
Okay.
there it is.
That's gonna be one of my.
Proverbs
That's gonna be
eighteen
one of my new
sixteen.
favorite scriptures to put a star next to. I love that. I always say I never know what I'm gonna get with death. I never know. I never know how you guys are gonna answer the
We went
question.
to church right quick, okay? It ain't nothing
I
wrong with
never,
it.
I never know how my guests are going to answer the questions. I think this is my favorite part of this podcast because I just never know. I can ask because I ask similar questions to everybody, and
Yeah.
everybody answers them differently. And so I do think that's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing about the podcast. What is your favorite? Do you have a favorite show of all the judge shows you've done? Do you have a favorite?
I've only done two, you
Right.
know,
So okay, between the two, we the
and I
people
like
and
them
paternity.
too. Well, no, I like them both for different reasons,
Okay,
right?
why do you like
Different reasons.
paternity court, and then why do you like the
Paternity court was because it never gets old reuniting people with
Mm-hmm,
their father. I mean, it could be 30 years from now. If I have the opportunity to figure out is someone or is someone not someone's biological father,
mm-hmm,
I will do it in a minute, because then that means 20 years from now, maybe their father will be at their college graduation, or maybe they'll be able to be at the father daughter dance. That show never got old to me. And it's because of that. It was really for the kids. And even if it was an older child, even if that person was 40 years old trying to figure out if someone is or is not their biological father, it's their inner child, right? That's still longing for that connection. So paternity court was all about kids. And it was my first show. And it was, I very much grew up in that show, right? As a TV judge along with my audience. I mean, and the audience made that show. Paternity Court was a show that really just took off from like word of mouth. People just started spreading it and spreading. I mean, it's still everywhere, all over TikTok. People
mm-hmm,
keep, it's like I
mm-hmm.
say, the show is limitless. And so I love that so much about that, each and every person. And I mean, I still have people write to me like, oh, I know my father now. Thank you for all you do. That is, it's a blessing.
Mhm,
Now,
mhm.
We the People is a show that came to me post pandemic.
Okay.
And it came to me and it was a show that already was on the air, right? It wasn't a
Okay.
show that I helped birth. It was a show that was on the air.
Mhm,
And what I love about that show is that I'm able to now talk about various aspects of the law, right? Rooted in a small claim. And what it helps me do, I think, is impart a lesson that I've tried to share with people so much, even as an attorney and just as a friend and confidant, that sometimes we are caught up in these little controversies in our lives that prevent us from moving forward. I always say that legal resolution leads to emotional and spiritual evolution, right? You can't evolve out of something until you resolve it. And there's a power in resolution that I don't think people really understand. And whether it's a divorce issue or a huge issue like that, or whether it's just like my neighbor's tree, every time it grows over and they don't keep their tree cut, every time I pull up to get out of my car, it's knocking me in my head. And now this time it cut me in my eye. Like, I'm telling you something that is something that could happen to anybody.
Hmm.
And so while paternity was something that was for a specified, right, group of people who were dealing with paternity issues, who knew someone that had a paternity issue, or just an audience that enjoyed watching those things get resolved, we the people is giving me the opportunity to talk about all types of things that anybody goes through, right? I saw this hairstyle, I took it to this hairdresser. I gave them $250 down payment. Look, this is what I asked for. This is what I got, right?
Right.
I'm suing them now. Like, these are things that happen to everybody. And what I realize is that so many people get stuck in these little legal things that they just can't get out of. And it prevents them from moving on in their life, right? It prevents them from just moving on. Whether it was a relationship and y'all done bought a TV on your credit card, but they were supposed to give you half, and now y'all done broke up, and who does the TV belong to? And now you stuck every day calling your girlfriend about this TV, when the truth is, it really ain't about the TV. You haven't moved on from the relationship.
Right. Right.
Right. So I love in that show taking these little teeny small claims issues, right? That maybe, look, well, they could be upwards of thousands of dollars. But the point is, it's the larger context that they sit in, right? It's the
Absolutely.
fact that the neighbor thing is really more about what does it mean to be a good neighbor? What does it mean to live next to someone and have dialogue in a way that doesn't always have to mean we got to fall out about it? How do we resolve issues? How do we negotiate through problems and find better ways to resolve something than to sit up with these legalities and pay money and
I
waste
agree.
time? So
I
my
tell people all the time, mediate, mediate,
yes,
mediate.
mediate. And
It
so
doesn't matter whether it be
right,
family law, business law, neighbor law, whatever.
get
Try
it
to
done.
mediate. Yeah.
Because eh, you're gonna resolve it anyway. You're gonna have to give a little to get something. So figure out how to do that. So I have so enjoyed in this show taking these little sagas, right? Pulling out the real truth
Hmm.
and then helping empower people to whatever that is, that whatever that saga is in your life.
Right.
Like you said, figure out how to work it out. Get over it. Get it off your plate. Do what's necessary to do that so you can move on.
Absolutely. What um if someone wants to become a TV judge, what would you think is the best piece of advice to give them?
It's a great question because I wasn't a person that was out really auditioning to be a TV judge. Both of my shows, I was actually asked to be the judge. I think if you want that, I think there has to be a couple of things that you
Okay.
have to understand. Number one, why? Why do you want to be a TV judge?
Okay.
I mean, and that's a real question because a lot of people just want to be on TV judge because they're a lawyer and they want to be on TV. So lawyer plus I want to be on
TV
TV
is
equals
TV
TV
judge.
judge.
Right.
Well, I just have to tell you because I'm a straight shooter. That doesn't mean you're gonna be any good at it, right? And if
Hmm.
you're, it can look good, but if you don't know why? What are you bringing? What is it? And then beyond the why, it's the what. What are you bringing that's different than anybody else is bringing to this genre, right? It's a genre has a lot of people in it. We've had a lot of TV judges. What are you bringing that's different from anyone else, right? Why are you interesting? You have to understand being a TV judge is not easy because it's like every day it really is about what your take is. And it's not really just about the legal take, it's all about the life take that's connected to the legal, right? And so I would say to you, do you have enough in life experience to do to be a TV judge? Ask yourself that. What can you really impart? Because you just walking up there, just knowing the law because you went to law school and banging your gavel is not going to keep you on the air, you know, whatever. I mean, I've been on the air for 10, 11 years as a TV judge. And I'm one of the, well, no, there's probably maybe a couple that are newer than me, but most of the other TV judges, they've been on a long time. And it takes a lot to every day get up and really have a take and an interesting take. And it's not as easy as people may think it is. It's a very, you have a lot that you have to be able to explain and to be able to make people understand and to rule on while still being entertaining, right? You've got to educate, you've got to entertain, and you've got to empower. That's what I always say that I'm doing. So I think you've got to know your why you want to do it, your what, like what are you bringing to this genre that no one else can. And then I think you need to just hone your skills in terms of not just knowing the law, but understanding people and why, how the law affects people. And then, of course, from there, I would just say be doing what you want to do as a lawyer. Do that right now. We live in a world now where you don't have to wait until someone says to you, hey, I really think you should be a TV judge. No, you can just give your analysis on certain cases. There's enough cases in the news every day where you can give your analysis on those things, give your thoughts on that, um, create your own. You can do whatever it is you want to do. But I do think it's starting to be a thing that people are seeing TV judges, and it becomes like, oh, okay, I want to do that. And that would be my challenge. If it's just I'm a lawyer plus I want to be on TV, I want to be a TV judge. I don't see longevity there.
Hmm.
There's got to be more to that.
And I
Um,
love what you said about also adding that life take. You got to have a life take, not just being
you
able
gotta
to.
have enough life experience, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's you get up there and people going through all these things. A lot of the reasons why I can say, oh no, you can't get that past me because that happened to me. This happened, and then this happened, and this happened. Or even in We the People, they'll try to tell me, oh no, because when I went to the school, I did this. No, you didn't. No, you didn't, because that's not how you do when you register your child for school. That's not what you do. See, it's being able to have enough life experience to bring, and that's at the end of the day
Hmm.
what makes the show interesting. Besides your litigants and the people that come before you, it's your take on that. And so if you haven't developed yourself enough, to understand how to give your take and how to draw from your life experience, just being a lawyer, being pretty, being handsome, that's not going to get you the longevity. And you also have to be an interesting person. And I would say this with love to anyone interested in doing it. Ask yourself, are you really an interesting personality? Right? Because that's another thing that's very hard. A lot of people want to be on TV
Hmm.
in front of the camera. And I used to do this a lot with my nonprofit, Ween. When we would talk to young women about being on TV, everybody wanted to be on TV. Everybody want to be on E News. Everybody want to be do this. Okay, if I'm bored when I'm listening to you right now,
Yeah.
how are we going to be on TV every day?
I don't
And
know.
you got to have a personality that drives this. And that's okay because some people may not have huge personalities, but they may have very interesting, nuanced personalities that are fascinating. Or they may have the personality where you just love to hate them, right? You
Hmm.
just love to hate them. Think about the Bill O'Reillys who made a career, right? His big career, where he used to be on Fox, and people, oh, I can't stand Bill O'Reilly, but you love to hate him, right? Or
Right.
people go, I can't stand Howard Stern, but you love to hate him, right? Because
Hmm.
there's an interesting, nuanced personality there that is different, right? Or they're not afraid to put themselves out there in a way that they don't care if everybody hates them, and they do a whole career around that. So I think you have to also think about art, what is interesting about you, and to know that there are a million ways to be in TV. You can write, you can create shows, you can produce, you can do a lot of things that are
Be a
behind.
correspondent. You don't
Yeah,
necessarily
of
have to
course,
be a
yes,
TV judge. Right.
where you're not faced with the task of, because people don't understand that is not easy, right? You're not just up there,
Right.
shooting the crap. You're working, right? You
Right.
have to be you. You have to manage the case. You're also in the middle of a production. You have to be able to speak in a way where you can get your point across in a very short amount of time, and you have to entertain people. So I would also say to anybody that's interested in doing it, practice,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. No different than you would get in front if you wanted to be a correspondent and you'd say, "Hi, this is Lauren Lake reporting, and I'm blah, blah,
Right.
blah." What does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
Don't get your shot and not be ready for it because you haven't really thought about what that is. You know, the blessing I think in my journey was that when the creator of Paternity Court asked me, I didn't even watch court shows. And so I was like, well, if you guys are interested in this, let me start watching and seeing what they're doing on these shows. And he was like, no, 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 no. That's exactly what I don't want you to do. Don't watch any court show because I want you to be exactly what I've seen on you on TV. I want you to be exactly who you are. I want you to be exactly authentically Lauren, which is why I think I'm able to bring so much levity into my courtroom. I'm able to laugh, cry. Sometimes I have to curse folks out without a curse word. Sometimes because I am me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am not trying to be anything. I'm me. So I think I would tell people to also practice through that you, right? That you would be as a TV judge so that when you do get the opportunity, you know what you're doing or you know where you want to draw from. And you don't put on that robe and get up there on that bench and then somebody says action and then you sitting up there going like, it sure looked easy when everybody else was doing it. Now, I know I'm a lawyer. I know my hair is cute. I know my makeup is cute. I know my outfit is right, but I'm out of stuff to say and we on case 3. Baby, you doing about 10 to 14 cases a day. You got to have something to say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, so I think all of these are great jewels for someone to take. Like I said, I think the biggest takeaway is that it's not as easy as it looks. And like
Mm-mm.
you said, you got to know your why, the what, you got to have life tapes. You have to, and you also have to say, and in the meantime, until I get this opportunity, there are other things I can do other than being a TV judge. You can be a lawyer in TV or be a part of the
Yes.
entertainment industry as a
I
lawyer.
worked for
Totally
years
different
as a
thing.
legal analyst on
Yes.
CNN, MSNBC. I was everywhere. And like I said, not even thinking that I would ever be a TV judge, but I was just doing that. Like there's so many things. And like I said, with the internet, the world is yours. You can be
Right.
whatever you
There's no
want to be.
excuse. You can start a
You can go on,
podcast, you can start a YouTube channel. Like
no,
you don't have any
anything.
excuse to not get yourself
No
out there.
excuse. You can do exactly what it is. And the light will come to you. And if it doesn't, and you still believe in you and who you are and what you want to do it yourself. You know, that's one of the reasons why I'm doing my own YouTube channel right now. I'm 55 years old. I launched my YouTube channel. I'm creating shows and content that mean the world to me because yes, I've been in this industry for 25 years and it's been a blessing. But there are a lot of other shows and things that I'm interested in doing and content that I think is important and a part of the legacy that I want to lead. I don't want to go up into some office and let people tell me why they don't think, oh, no, we don't think that'll work on TV. No, we don't think that'll work. Okay, but guess what? I know it'll work because it's for somebody, right? My
Absolutely.
latest show I just launched, Limitless Conversations. If I would have taken that to a studio, it probably been 6, 7 months, if not 2 years, from somebody to say, okay, yeah, we like limitless conversation. No, I just went on and did limitless conversations.
I agree.
Rebirth. Somebody needs a rebirth in their life. I could go up and try to convince the studio that I think people need a rebirth. I think you should really invest in this. No, nowadays you can invest in it yourself,
Absolutely.
put it out there, and then once they see it work, then you don't have to prove nothing. It's already there. And you see it.
Contact and then they come to you.
That's right. And then you're not running around begging and pleading and please and when and how. Those days have changed. And the truth is, the studios want that more anyway because they want to already know it work. It cuts out a lot of stuff in between. If it's not a show that they're developing and they own, I've found that you can really get some traction by just doing something that you know works. There's nothing wrong with that. Limitless possibilities, you guys. Nothing should stop you from living a dream that you have
Mhm.
except you, right? You're the only thing that could stop you and say, you know what, I'm done with that dream. I want to move on to something else. And that's okay too. But other than that, you keep going and you keep trying.
Last two questions.
Mhm.
Um, the um, I feel like what we have, obviously you're a TV judge, but before you were a TV judge, as you mentioned before, you were an actual lawyer. You
Yeah,
thought about being a doctor. And I talk about, less than 5% of lawyers are Black, less than 5% of doctors are also Black. So my question to you is can what can as the Black legal community do now to maybe just encourage the next generation? Because like you said, everyone can't be a singer, everyone can't be a content creator, everyone
right,
can't even get on TV. I mean,
right.
some of these professions, the percentages are so low. So how can we encourage the next group to, again, find some of these professions like being a lawyer, being a doctor, like making it more interesting and accessible? What are your thoughts on that? So that, we can get over this 5%, because we've been under 5% for since the beginning. So
Look, I also think we have to be realistic about why it's so low as well, right? There's some
okay.
systemic racism in terms of course, admissions that we still deal with.
Hmm.
Um, Now, the DEI efforts, the affirmative action efforts have been nixed, and we're going to be back just trying to figure out how to create, equity for ourselves. And I think it's also an issue of a lot of times, maybe people of color, Black and brown people, we are more often than our white counterparts coming from working class families, right? Where maybe the extended educational time, it is a huge financial burden. People
Yeah.
don't want to be burdened with the loans. It's expensive. I had law school loans. Like I said, it was my responsibility to pay for it. So I took loans to pay for it. And I also worked my way through. Um, and so I think that that's another thing that we have to consider. And I think we also have to be very honest about the pros and the cons, and again, the whys, right? It used to be people just want to be a lawyer because they want to figure out a way to be successful and make money. There's a whole lot of lawyers out here that don't make a lot of money. Like you need to understand that. It has to be a different reason than just, I want to make money. And being a doctor as well, that's not something you just do because you say, I want to make money. No, you truly, in both careers, you have people's lives on the line. Um, so I think to answer your question where you say you want to get this above the 5%, I think it has to be something where people understand that there are truly limitless possibilities. And I talk about that. I did a talk before about how much I've done with my law degree, right? And my girlfriend, an attorney, and she's passed on now, the late Midwin Charles, she used to have this seminar she did every year about all of these possibilities you could do with your law degree. And I think that people need to understand how law and how medicine work for the greater good of humanity, right? And how big that is, so that there isn't just one way to do that. There's not just one way to be successful. There are a myriad of ways, millions of ways you could take that. You could be a doctor and then I see doctors now that probably make more money online being being medical advocates and telling you things about being a doctor. This one woman that talks through menopause has had huge success online, just talking women through menopause, as well as lawyers talking through cases. So you can do so many things with it. The education is never, I always say your law degree is never going to go to waste. You're going to use it no matter where you go. And so I would say to people to think about that. I also think we have to be realistic as well that our society has done a shift. You don't have to go and do all of this schooling and go through all of these exams to make some money. People are now flipping their phones open and flipping their cameras and turning on a microphone, and they're making far more money than lawyers, and they got far less headaches. and they are, able to spin in and spin out of subjects and different genres and do whatever they want to do. Being a lawyer and being a doctor, things like that, they're huge investments of time, of talent, and treasure. And you've got to know if that's for you. So I would just say consider that, but know that our representation matters.
Absolutely.
It matters, right? In order to be able to see the systemic racism, that you have to almost be able to see it. And I think that's where we, as Black and Brown lawyers, are able to see it and address it in a way that maybe others cannot because we've lived it. We
Mhm.
know it. We can see it and sense it and smell it when it's there, and then we can fight it. And I think if we're going to be moving the generations forward,
Mhm.
I think we have to make law and medicine, but I'm speaking as a lawyer,
Mhm.
something that is, a goal or a career that is worthwhile. Lawyers get such a negative rap. I always say lawyers get such a negative rap till you
Yeah.
need one, right? Till you
Right,
need one.
exactly. We're
And
terrible people until you need one.
until you need one. And so the point is that sometimes we have to be able to put that out there. And I think lawyers have to do a better job at encouraging, right? People. I mean, look, we're usually so busy and inundated with our own life and work, encouraging people to seek it out, to say, hey, I think you've got the skills. You'd be great at this. And it won't go to waste. You'll be able to use it in so many ways, no matter what you do. Even if you just start a business later, that law degree will come in handy. Just encourage.
Absolutely. Last question. What should we be on the lookout for? I know you mentioned you have a couple of new shows on your YouTube channel. Is there anything else the audience should know that's coming up for you that they can support and tune
Yes,
into?
yes. I'm excited. Judge Lauren Lake TV is up on the YouTube channel. I've got new shows coming. We've got Limitless Conversations, Rebirth with myself and Aaliyah Taylor. Limitless Conversations. My first episode is with Dr. Bryant. Cheyenne Bryant. It was an incredible conversation. We've got more coming there. We've got exclusive behind the scenes content from the court shows. I'm doing a pop-up tour for women-owned businesses. A lot going on Judge Lauren Lake TV, and super excited about that. In addition, we're going to have more We the People coming up soon. I'm on hiatus now, but I'll be back with that and getting back out there, doing a lot more speaking. And I'm looking forward to connecting with people again in person. It feels like it's been such a long time. So getting back out on the road soon, and hopefully I'll have a chance to connect in person with many of you. And of course, across all platforms, I'm there, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, at Judge Lauren Lake TV, having a great time and just trying to connect.